Okay. Hello. So, I'm on a rooftop in Seattle. I work, do commercial boilers and heating systems. Have for 11 years now. Anyway, one of the major benefits is that a lot of boilers are on rooftops. So I get to see the city from beautiful perspectives. It's given me an incredible opportunity to pray over the city and to just feel into the city, different buildings, different locations. It's been really, really, really beautiful. Just over 10 years, that dynamic of it. Anyway, so I had a thought to talk about placebo belief catalysts. So Dr. Joe Dispenza he wrote a book called You Are the Placebo. And I've got the book, I've skimmed it, but it's really the phrase, man, that just really, really resonated with me on top of tremendous of other things that I've come across and thought about and intuited. Intuition, into it. You look into it. You look into it. Intuit it. It's not just research and study, it's those things, but that's I came up with this quote the other day when I was doing an audio journal like this, but it was just audio. I am not the things I know. The things I know help me to articulate who I am. I think it's really beautiful, and I think that makes a lot of sense. It's that's why when young kids get love, or that everybody scoffs, or at least is hesitant, because oh my gosh, they're so young, they just don't know what they don't know, and they don't even know who they are yet. And it's really interesting, because that's been true, I feel like, traditionally. I think things are changing. I do think we're heading into a new earth, so to speak. There's not really a lot of paradigms that I buy into wholeheartedly. I don't think it's supposed to be that way. It's it's an ever-growing, ever-expanding understanding of everything. And so it's always being refined and modified. And you can do enough research that you set a platform and a foundation underneath yourself upon which you're constantly making decisions. Jordan Peterson's got an incredible, actually dictated or transcribed out, it's like a 6-minute clip, and it's an older one, but it's when he was talking about the Holocaust, about how his own self-discovery into his own shadow and his own darkness, and realizing how human the Nazis were, and the process, the very slow process of being converted into monsters. There's another YouTube talk on, I forgot the name of it. Beautiful, though. It talks about people being monsters, and that run down that trail. I'm trying to say what I say I want to talk on this about. Try to stay on talk. Placebo belief. Okay, let's stay on that, because the monsters thing are people monsters, trauma, having love and compassion and understanding for people. That's my heart. So those stories will come up over and over again, I'm sure. So I'll bypass that for now. So placebo belief catalyst. If you are the placebo, which it's so so funny and silly to me at this point, that I can just picture in my head scientists getting in white coats, getting all and all upset when the placebo effect screws up their study. 35% of people given a placebo, but they got better. Fuck. That ruins things. It's dude, shouldn't you be studying that? What is that made them get better? And they were not given the cure or the pharmaceutical, or whatever. It's because you are the placebo. And the problem is 95% of what we say, think, do, believe, act upon is our subconscious. It's not even conscious. We're not even aware of it. It's been programmed into us. I think it's pretty solidified by the time you're age 7. Prenatal in the womb from 3, I think it's 3rd trimester, up to age 2 or 3. There's massive just wet cement imprinting from the environment. Mom stress in the womb, and all the different things we go through medically, and the effect of Wi-Fi in hospitals, even that. I mean, they know, so it's my understanding, so I think it's a 2012 Bioinitiative report, I think that's right. They reviewed over 1,000 studies of microwave radiation from cell phones and all sorts of other things. And just in reviewing, they got a huge team of scientists across the world to review, and just found a whole bunch of bullshit in there that's clearly super dangerous, that just doesn't get emphasized or highlighted because Who's paying for the studies? The cell phone companies, because the cell phones are going to become the cigarettes of the day. I mean, have you seen old commercials where they're like, 4 out of 5 doctors recommend Marlboro? Like, what the fuck? 4 out of 5 doctors recommend Samsung Galaxy S9. God, we're so ignorant to how things affect our body. Well, the masses are ignorant. The ones on the top aren't. That's why the structures are set up the way they are. Is every teacher involved in some conspiracy about history? No, that's the whole point, is that you eliminate the oral historians over time. It doesn't take long. 1 generation, get rid of the oral historians. And then put in your own agenda. And then, it really does not take long. There's so much evidence for this stuff, guys. Like, I don't know. I'm not trying to convert here. Preaching to the converted, probably, for the most part, or at least people that are interested in seeking. So I guess that's part of me refining this too, and figuring out like what's my audience, who am I talking to. And probably what I just said is probably true. It's probably mostly the converted. It's going to a new depth. I mean, this is like, I put this on here too. It's to establish, I think I said in the last one also, but a place of equal co-creation, a place where your perspective is honored and valuable just because it's your fucking perspective. Now that doesn't mean you can be a troll ass piece of shit. I don't know how else to say it, dude. You are not a piece of shit. You're a human being that has beautiful, valuable things to say. For whatever reason, you're siding on the side of the quick and easy retorts and the, what's the word I'm looking for in debate terms, where you start attacking the actual character of a person, or you start focusing on some little nuance that doesn't ultimately matter to the whole point, or whatever. Just that kind of stuff. And I do think most people aren't aware that that is a program inside of them. Yes, I can generalize it and say, what program? Oh, to be an asshole, to be a troll. Okay, but what is it though? I mean, it's more of I think it's more rooted in, at some point along the way, because a neurological association from our parents. For example, let's say you grow up with a super just abusive piece of shit dad, but your mom is wonderfully kind and loving, and is always there to soothe your wounds, stands up to your dad for you. I mean, just all these things you would hope, mom in a situation, hope you get out of that situation, but whatever. But so your mom's incredibly, beautifully, genuinely embodies love. She's just got her own codependency issues and whatever, so she didn't get out of that relationship. But to you, she was, and let's say she was a Christian. To you, she always talked about Jesus, the love of Jesus. She embodied the love of Jesus. You get neurologically wired to that terminology for what you're feeling. And so that is your belief that it's Jesus' love that is affecting you. Now, what I've come to understand, and I believe that too, that's how I grew up, not with the abusive father dynamic, not that extreme, but both my parents are Christians, grew up in the church. I found tremendous truth in the scriptures. Beautiful truth. God, still, such beautiful truth. But there's more. The problem is when it's confined to only 66 books, when there are a solid 100, I say solid as in like well-documented archaeological support, found in the same Qumran caves as the book of Isaiah, the copy that myself included used to use to do apologetics for the Bible. Well, they even found a scroll of Isaiah that was almost identical, maybe a few like commas and things were off, but it was like identical to the 900 AD version, the scroll, and so that means the whole Bible's valid. It's like, well, it's a stretch, but it does validates it. It does validate it back another 700 years, give or take, because the oldest Masoretic text, which is the foundation for the Old Testament, are from 900 AD, which in itself is like absurd. Think about this. Okay, just consider this. If you want to just go on textual evidence, it seems to me that books like the Quran are far more valid in their textual sovereignty. That's where everybody's at. One text, one translation, one language, since it was created in 600 AD, something like that, whenever it was written, as opposed to the Hebrew text, which comprised both the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible, being the oldest, solid, singular, holistic, that everyone goes back to refer to as the canon, the absolute source text, is from 900 AD. 900 AD. Now there's bits and pieces like Isaiah and the Qumran caves, and really, if you want to get into the most legitimate biblical New Testament and Old Testament, it would be the Septuagint, which goes back, I think, to 300 BC. And the story has it was that, I don't know if it was Alexander, or who it was, but he had 70 or 72 Hebrew scholars come in to write, because they were supposed to have memorized all this stuff. They wanted it in Greek language, and they wanted it accurate. So they had them come in, put them in 72 different rooms, and each had them write out a full version of the entire Old Testament. And it doesn't include the New Testament, the Old Testament, Septuagint, I believe. And that the legend has it that they all came out identically the same, and that's the Septuagint. What is fascinating about that is doing word studies from the Septuagint. That's where you find words like giants and things that you don't necessarily find in the Hebrew text in the exact same way. Talk about giants coming out of the earth in the end days, and like there's a bunch of extra stuff in there just from the canonical text, but in a singular, holistic version of the Septuagint. Not to mention, if you want to get in the New Testament, they actually have Hebrew versions or Aramaic versions of different New Testament letters, but we always rely on the Greek fragments. It's just... Anyway, there's so much more there, though, for the Old Testament, too. The Book of Jubilees and the Book of Jasher, books that are mentioned in the Bible, not Jubilees, but Jasher is, twice, as being a reliable book. For more details, refer to the Book of Jasher. Okay, getting a little off topic. Placebo. I'm trying to think how I got down the path of textual criticism and the Bible, texts, religions. Don't know where I was going with that, but I know where to pick up with it. It's hitting me right now. So all those constructs create a morphogenic field, create a framework, a religion, a framework, a belief system that explains the world, right? Explains creation and gods and our creation, our purpose on earth, and what we're, all this stuff, morality, outlines all these things. And one of the terms I still think is really good for the Bible, the acronyms, basic instructions before leaving Earth. I think that's really good. And I think that's incredibly potent because it's basic instructions, not advanced instructions, basic. And it, as much as people want to shit on this, when they say, well, basically Jesus is all about love, and I used to shit on that too. Like, dude, no, you're not reading the whole Bible then, because Jesus said people go to hell. You gotta take it all in context, take it all or nothing. God, it's such a beautiful box to break out of. It's so freeing, because it's like, oh my God, no, it's not all or nothing. It's Christ in you. God was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not the God of the written text. Even in the Jewish and the Hebrew tradition, that God gave Moses the written Torah and the oral Torah, and you cannot have one without the other. You can't, because you won't understand either without the other. And then, dude, check this out, okay? So this is where, for me, oral history, oral historians has taken on more and more and more value. I know where I was going way before, so let's just like tie this mentally into what I said a minute ago. About tons of newspapers. Smithsonian used to dig them up and everything, and there are newspapers all over the country, and research this on your own. Giant skeletons, 12, 16, 20 feet tall, like hundreds in newspapers, late 1800s, early 1900s, lots in California during road construction, my understanding they still find. But let's see, L.A. Marzulli, there's some other archaeologists and stuff that are into that. Brian Forrester, he's more into the elongated skulls, I think. And different actual structures of the ancient sites. But it's all there. It's like if you just spend time looking into it, not just mainstream news, not just enough to confirm your preconceived bias going into it, like really look into it. Look into it with your intuition, your own. Look into it with the precursor of, okay, at some point in life, I feel like everybody's got to get to a point where, like, you know what, there's got to be more to life. Okay? Now, my previous self is, yeah, and the answer is Jesus. It's such a beautiful oversimplification. It's true. And I'll tell you why it's true. Well, I told you in the last one. It's a physiological Christ in you. It says when you obey the Spirit, it's in Romans. And yes, for the very fundamentalist Christians out there, I am cherry-picking verses for good reason. For good reason. And it'll all tie in. Like I said, if something in your spirit, your inner being, has you listening to me, like more than one video and to the end, I would suggest that if it's something inside you that's upset and you're trying to find things to like really pick apart, one, stop yourself and ask why. Like, what's the point? What, are you going to correct me and you teach me something? I hope you do teach me something. I've got a lot to learn. Fuck, I have so much to learn, and everything's so beautiful, and it all fits together. It really does. But really ask yourself why. Why do you feel a responsibility to tell me that? Especially, man, the comments, like, I haven't uploaded any videos, but I followed enough videos now to go like, holy shit, dude, how do people not commit suicide out of the awful thing? And people do, but it's like out of the awful things that people write. I'm like, why? You know, I gotta say, I'll put this in here. I'm not putting names, so the only person who'll know who this is the person who sent it to me, and he may or may not ever watch this. But I posted a video on Christmas of Manly P. Hall, who does this beautiful message. God, he's one of the best teachers that has like ever existed. He's incredible. His teachings are so rich, and as far as I can tell, I think like he doesn't have notes or anything. It's just so thoroughly in him. Man, they're just such rich teachings. And they take history from all over the world, the exoteric and the esoteric. Exo is outer and eso is inner. So esoteric's hidden or concealed. It's not necessarily it has no moral connotation. And it's beautiful. It talks about what all the religions ultimately really are about. And this seems this is going to upset some, but to others this is like massive breakthrough revelation and worth considering. Like I feel like I can tune into who's listening. And there's different types of people. You know, those who get really upset. And I just would encourage you, if you can't get past your own being upset, and just take this with a grain of salt. That's all it is. Dude, this is my salt. This is my light. This is my salt. I'm learning. I'm growing. But I'm sharing. And I know there's resonance with people. And it's time to share. It's time to get out there and to be. And to be myself and be my own unique self. And connect with other people, you know? So that we can love each other, man. So we can grow as beings. We can deal with our shadow issues. We can deal with our darkness and bring it into the light so that it can be transmuted into light and integrated into us, because it's us. It's not some demon. Although, on that thought, there are demons. They do happen. They do attach to people. They do get inside people. But far more, I think, than people realize, they're fragmented parts of ourselves that are tormented because they live in a place of non-wholeness. They do their part. So when money gets tight, this part of you just starts to take over. This anxiety, this unnatural, amplified anxiety when your bank account hits a certain number. It's just this anxious. I got to work. I got to take some extra shifts. And a lot of times you can take an extra shift, so you don't hit that point. You see that point's coming. Take an extra shift. Bank account stays up. But what about when you hit that point and all that anxiety comes up? What do you do with it? This is everything. What I'm asking you right now, I ask myself all the time. And with those things, any emotion I'm feeling, especially the uncomfortable ones. I'm not going to say bad or negative, because every emotion is valid. Like, think about that. Every emotion you have is valid. It's there for a reason. It's not there nonsensically. Even if it's there because of a government military weapon that is sending that frequency at you. They've been doing that since the 70s at least, from all the research I've done. That too, guys, like, man, shit. Any of this stuff, almost everything I think I would talk about is released, is declassified. CIA documents, FBI documents, Army documents from other governments, talking about encounters with UFOs. I mean, this is like old hat in most of those circles. You just don't hear about it. And things are changing now. I mean, I don't know what you've seen, but there are tremendous more UFO videos just in the last 6 months, I feel like, than I've seen in years. And I've subscribed to a bunch of YouTube channels just to kind of see, you know, what gets put out there and what's going on. It's because the veil is thinning, as I understand it. That the times of domination and control are over, and the times of human beings to rise up and become healed and whole and trauma-free, to become the beautiful beings that we're meant to be, to exist in me, being. We've not gotten back to placebo yet. Okay. And that's my fault for the structure of this, of not having it quite laid out. But, you know, is what it is. These are my stream of consciousness uploads. I'll have other ones where I'm, like, actually interviewing people and talking with people. So, I don't know, a little bit of everything. Placebo belief has to do with epigenetics and gene expression. So whether vaccines are good or not, they do have a bunch of other adjuvants in there that are not natural, and the vaccine itself too. And because we just know how genes work. I can't think of a study to cite, but I know this is a part of what affects our epigenetic expression. Same thing with astrology. Astrology is a science of epigenetic expression. That's why if you do more than just write it off as hippy-dippy woo-woo bullshit, and there is that. That's the problem. There's perversion in all these things. There's like, first of all, put this in your pipe and smoke it, okay? JP Morgan is known for saying anybody can be a millionaire, but to be a billionaire takes an astrologer. Dude, I read that and I go, what the fuck? Like, I could not fit that in my paradigm. Like, no, they take that seriously? Why? And you look into it, it's the science of light. It's DNA and light. And the studies by, I forgot the doctor's name. David Wilcock talks about it a lot in his books. He's got great books, David Wilcock, all of them. I mean, they're like, you see that on there? It's like thick. Tons of sources cited. Also, Anthony Peake. Man, that guy cites more sources, and he does esoteric topics. And then also Janice Barcelo. Oh my god. Yeah, you wanna really be angry at something? Go not at her, but the material she exposes and presents. Oh my! It's the only book I've ever thrown across the room. I was so angry. It's about birth traumas and the way that the modern day medical system affects the epigenetic expression, the way it actually neurologically traumatizes babies from the get-go. All right, am I going to go this direction? It's supposed to be placebo belief, but this does affect it. This is the point. Okay, this works. So, circumcision. And I'll say this as a precursor. Through my journey, I think the Bible is literally true. Just the six books, not the ones outside of it. Six books. I think it can be taken literally true, face value. There was an Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob that existed. I think all these things are true. They may or may not be. Here's the thing: you can never prove it, right? We don't have time travelers. You can't prove it. You just have to believe it. I do believe it's true. If it's not true, that's the greatest thing. Who cares? My faith in God or Spirit, Creator, is not in a book. Not because a book told me to. A book gave me language, just like I said at the beginning. I am not the information I know, but the information that I learned and the things that I learned help me articulate who I am and what I know and what I've experienced. So if you only grow up in the church, then you only know to call it Jesus, the power of the Holy Spirit, and all those things, you know. But what about if you grew up in the Muslim church, or you grew up in a Muslim mosque, or whatever they do? In some other form of life, you're going to know that as Shiva or Krishna, or you're going to know that as something else. But guess what? If you look, I love this way of looking at it, thinking about it. Instead of the words, look at imagine seeing a scene in colors, right? And some people do. This is auras. This is people who are born with certain genes turned on because of lineage, and especially you get into the Rh negative factor, and they have an innate ability, a psychic ability to open portals and to speak things into existence, into time travel. It's funny, because if you study any of this, you're going to be like, yes, no, I get what he's saying, or, you know, whatever. And other people are going to be like, what the fuck is he talking about? Oh well, this is me. This is where I'm at in my processes. These are all parts of my experience, 3D experience, and the things I've learned, and I'm trying to use those to articulate me. And the things I'm learning, the things I'm observing, the things I'm feeling, the things I'm wanting to be and to become, the things that I perceive, the beauty that I perceive. God, I see so much beauty in everything, and I just so badly want to share it. So, two things. I'm bouncing all over the place. Oh well. So there's one. I was getting back to it. I posted this thing by Manly P. Hall. It was beautiful. It's about the subconscious. All the stuff's about the subconscious. All the metaphor. Take all the scriptures, Isis, Osiris, and Horus, and there's all of them. There's a book called The World's 16 Crucified Saviors, written in the 1800s. Compares all the texts. They're the same stories, man. Around the world for thousands of years. I mean, you've got. Okay, I don't want to go on a tangent. We'll fill all that in later. I'm definitely on some of these videos going to be going through the ancient texts and just reading them, because they're so beautiful, and it's so important to hear them in context. It's so important. It's so important. There's a ancient text, Hebrew text, that's called not the legends. I mean, there is the Legends of the Jews, which is Dr. Louis Ginsburg, Professor Louis Ginsburg, Ginsburg back in 1909 compiled all the oral traditions. I mean, he's got 2 volume out of 6 volume or 7 volume series. Like the last 2 whole volumes are citing sources, and he goes through the whole oral history of Judaism. It's so amazing. Like you hear about before creation that there are 10 things that were created. I think it's 10 things that were created before, or 7 things existed always eternally before anything else was created. It's like the eternal throne of God, the white fire on black fire, the like these beautiful things that I was just reading it again actually with my grandma the other night, and I'm like having to stop and take notes because since I've read that initially, which I was blown away by, I've learned so many other things. So now I look back and I go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what it's talking about. I just make these connections, and you might think, well, how do you know that's what it's talking about? I don't know per se, but I know, or like gnosis. It's that inner, like this inner yes, this inner just. And even if you don't, and see, here's part of the problem with society too. We think everything has to be black or white, polarized, yes or no, absolute or not at all. That's so childish. It's so childish. Because almost nothing I can't pull something out of my head right now that is always absolute. I mean, come on, geez, light itself is not always a wave or a photon. So how can we think anything is always this one thing only? I mean, that's what happens when you have a dictatorial God or a dictatorial priesthood interpreting the text for you. Not allowed to see it any other way. When the Hebrews have always seen, even to this day, they understand. There's the PARDS acronym, the Peshat, Remez, Direk, and Sod, which is Peshat is face or face level or the literal interpretation of the text, which is true. Then there's the deeper level, which is like taking metaphor out of it, and then there's stringing principles together, and then there's the secret level of the text that's intuited to you by your spirit. They would say God, the Creator, Holy Spirit, well, however they articulate that in that paradigm, but or the Ruach HaKodesh, which is, I used to really love that term, and I use that a lot. Man, I've been through beautiful seasons where I would just use these terminologies in ways that just so like melted and resonated with my heart, because that's where I was at in my relationship with spirit and my development with myself, and that was the words to express the feeling and the relationship that I was developing with this entity, which ultimately I found out to be myself. You've never heard that before. I don't know, it's funny, I just have these like blasts of screenshots of different face reactions to that statement depending on where people are at, which is very interesting because I don't think of that typically too much when I'm just doing an audio journal to myself, but when I know I'm going to be broadcasting this, it's like there's a whole bunch of additional streams of understanding like around me. So I've always, the way I see things in the spirit, I know we're honestly, ironically, all of this has to do with placebo belief. It really does. It underpins it all. So even though, yes, some of you, like my brother, probably wouldn't even be able to watch this because I'm bouncing around all over the place. And man, that is not how he's wired. He is not like that. I can appreciate that. I understand that. Not everybody does this, and it is what it is. It really does have to do with all of it. So I'm just going to keep going. But I lost my train of thought there. So beautiful to be up here right now, and the sun is just about to go down over the mountains, so I'll probably have to end this here soon. It's going to get dark, but the sun, did you know when you close your eyes and sun gaze, stare at the sun, just through the photon receptors in your skin, but especially even through your lids, the light that comes from the sun stimulates neural pathways and things in your brain that do not get stimulated any other way. And that in turn produces chemicals and other things that actually produce life, vitamin D being one of them. It's not so much that vitamin D gets on your skin and it's just some chemical composition. It's a bioelectric, biochemical, biomagnetic interchange in your body. It's all of it. They all operate together. Man, the sun just feels so safe, like home, to be in the sun. So I posted this video, mainly pee hole. It's a beautiful explanation of the solstice, using all traditions, all religions, astrology included. And I got a message from someone who is Christian. I got a direct message on Facebook. It's a public post. I got a direct message. And I prefaced the post with something to the effect of, I don't know, something about like the beauty of creation and the creator, you know, prime creator in quotations or something. I don't know. But I used a term that was more general. You know, not God or Yahweh or whatever. Because most of my friends, I think at this point, still don't really know where I'm at with things at all. I mean, that's how life goes sometimes, right? I haven't been super into Facebook in 6-7 years. I just started posting again because it's just time to get out there and interact with people. It's been beautiful and wonderful. And so I post that, and he direct messages me, and all he says is, we know who this prime creator is. His name is Jesus. And that was it. Or I know, or we know, you know, or something. I don't know, whatever. But that was it. I just didn't respond. I mean, there's part of me, because I'm quick on my feet and I think and I process, I always want to, when something comes, I want to dive right in and just like respond. I want to get this dialogue going. Not like a retort. Well, let's be fair. There are parts of me that are like, they really want to retort. They just feel really annoyed and like, really? I doubt, doesn't even sound like you listen to it, for one. Two, what do you get out of this? Do you feel like you've fulfilled a moral obligation to God, to your own conscience, to correct me? Maybe. And even if that's true, you didn't do a very good job. I mean, you just say your piece and walk away. Like, you didn't initiate a dialogue saying, gosh, I haven't heard from you in a really long time. The wording you're using sounds concerning to me, because that's probably how he felt, I imagine. You know, can you talk to me about this some more? Why did you post this? What does this mean to you? You know, like, none of that. That to me, that's loving. I don't care what religion you're in, or that's just treating another human being if you really want to understand them. See, that to me is a program. The way you responded is a program. It's based on a psychological, your identity is stuck in an ideology. You're attaching your identity to a paradigm. And so if that paradigm shifts, your identity shifts. And that's earth-shattering. And that's why in the Bible and a lot of other texts that God, Spirit, Creator, yourself, your inner being, will shake everything that can be shaken so that you are unshakable. So you can exist in this world as a being who's connected to yourself, but also in the world, functioning like a good citizen, you know, not like a good sheeple, but a good citizen. I mean, taking care of your fellow man, pulling your own weight to the best you can. I mean, everybody's in different situations, you know. So I get it, the extreme, the polarization again. It's like, oh, you're going off the deep end, and now, you know, people just like stop showering and they're spiritual, and so they don't have to work, and you know, because they're spiritual and they're just going to manifest their money. And I'm not saying you can't do that. I think you can. I think people do. But I think people very much overestimate their ability to manifest and underestimate the power of their subconscious constantly manifesting their placebo belief reality now. And so if you can, that's why hypnosis, if you get into that, man, it's a science. It's a science of changing your subconscious. So you are the placebo, is what I've come down to. That, a lot of that's like a lot of filler that kind of helps it out. Some of it may or may not. I don't know. That's probably it's an interesting video to me. These are my own thoughts. These are all interesting, adding and expanding and trying to understand better and think of it differently. And just the value in thinking of it differently, thinking of it from somebody else's perspective is so beautiful when they really engage their own thoughts. They're not just spitting out rhetoric. It's like, you want to go verse to verse on something, fine. But I've got a handful of verses. I've done this enough times now. It's like I've got a handful of verses that you just can't answer if you want to hold to that paradigm. And you try to, well, it also says this. I know it also says that, but that doesn't negate that it says this. You know, we can get into that another time, what those things are. There's a handful of them, and they're beautiful. I'm not using them to say the Bible's not reliable. I'm actually trying to say, look, the Bible is telling the truth in way deeper ways than you realize, and the surface level ways. They're all true. And I'll say this, for hell, in Hebrew, there's no concept of hell, an eternal punishment. the actual original Hebrew picture word, I think it's olam, which is eternity or everlasting. But the word picture is like that which is just beyond the horizon. That's their concept of eternity. It's something beyond your purview. It's outside of your daily experience. It doesn't matter to your everyday life. That's not eternal punishment. Now in Greek, sure, you want to go back, I'm sure there's a Greek word, whatever it is in Greek, that they interpret for the original New Testament text, that means like eternal, forever, everlasting, and punishment, hell, and all that. But if you really want to get into it, here's a little snapshot of what's to come. That where worms eat and kill and destroy, and like worms never die and all that, dude. It's talking about your bowels and parasites. It really is. That is what it's talking about. Wait till we get into the Essene Gospel of Peace. Holy shit! Because that's where your dreaming body is stored. And yes, we have dreaming bodies. We have, I think I talked about that. We have science. It's really a science now, which is so cool. We thought it was just this, weird, us in the West here, I think in general, just think it's kind of this weird mysticism thing. Oh, it might be kind of cool. Meditation, still, or what's called meditation or thoughtfulness, mindfulness. That's what we're looking for. Yoga, they're good things, and they are good things. But like anything, if you're not engaging yourself into it, you're not letting those practices be a medium for you to go deeper into you, to know where your triggers, everybody has them, where are the things that offend you and upset you, and why. And then when you can understand why, like, in so many ways, we really can say everything is our parents' fault, for sure. Like, really, in so many ways. Like, their own issues and their own traumas affect us so viscerally through our whole lives at a neurological level. It's the reason that even though you know better, why can't you do better? There's programming there, our own programs. Take out big esoteric systems of domination, control, and world, whatever, and reptilians, and that's all true. But that has its place, and doesn't matter to a lot of this. What matters ultimately is you do you, boo-boo. You take care of your own shit, man. You know what's going to solve the world and bring world peace? Everybody dealing with their own shit. Stop picking a party to align with so that your friends give you a thumbs up, but everybody else on the opposite end is annoyed and defriends you on Facebook. And like, the longer they keep us polarized, the longer they keep us traumatized, and from looking at our own traumas and healing, actually going within. And that's what it's all about. When you go inside and heal you, okay, I came up with this analogy. Okay, perfect. This is how I'll end it. Beautiful. This analogy just came to me today. So let's say we're all on a beach, and every hole, everybody's digging a hole. And you're different. People are different places. Closer to the water, farther from the water, on the rocky sand, soil, whatever. And everybody's hole is unique. Everybody's hole is different depth, a different size, different shape, using different tools to dig your hole. And occasionally you find somebody who's deep, like rich. Like they have a beautiful hole. They've decorated well. They've dug really deeply. They've spent a lot of time on it. They've been around a while, obviously. And it's even more fascinating when they're young and they have this intricate hole. And it's a funny thing to say or whatever, but the metaphor. But you find with almost anybody, people let you down. And that's true. It happens. If you put your hope in any being outside of yourself, you're going to get let down. Doesn't mean you have to get bitter. But that's a temptation because it's painful. But when you find beings who have not just dug beautiful holes on the outside or on the inside, but they dig so deep they hit the water table. They find that living water, that life inside of them. That's where it's like, there's something different about you. I get that a lot. I've gotten that a lot for a long time. And it's that vibrancy that you're getting in touch with yourself. It's your spirit, really. And it's water. In the metaphor, it's a perfect metaphor. It's like, it's your spirit. When you actually dig down and touch into your spirit, whether you want to call it spirit or not, dude, I don't care. Who cares? Call it your subconscious. Call it your, I don't know, whatever. Like my brother's I don't know if I want to oversimplify him as a reductionist materialist. Is that accurate? The last time we talked about that specifically, he's on the side of everything being random and whatever. And there's, not spirit or souls, that it's just we exist, we're aware, then we're not. But it's not in some shrug that off kind of way. Like, he really values life, though. To him, that makes coincidences, or synchronicities, as I would call them, coincidences, or as Carl Jung calls them, synchronicities or coincidences with meaning. When the coincidences happen that are so profound, but mathematically impossible, that to him is incredibly amazing, because it is mathematically impossible. What are the odds? Because he doesn't believe in spirit or any of that. So that makes life enjoyable to him. That brings him joy. And that's what it's all about, man. It's finding freedom and healing and joy and wholeness, however you find it, at this point in your life. And that should always be growing and developing and expanding so that you can understand yourself better and others. And then it just never ends. It's this positive feedback loop. But if we stop expanding, if we only stick to our friend group and our religious structure and only take what people in our religious structure tell us about the other religions, and we do just like the research we do is by people from our religion wrote a book on this religion, and you read that book, dude, you're just embedding yourself into, you know, conservatism or liberalism or Christianity or Muslimism. But it's about expanding, knowing people. And one of the most beautiful things I've done is gone out of my way to get diverse perspectives firsthand on things, and just people's perspectives on things. Man, I'm so in awe at the beauty of the human being. These DNA technology skin suits and the beings that inhabit them. So when you find the living water in your own beautiful little hole on the beach that you're digging, and you find it in another person, and they see they have it, that you have your own living water, it becomes this beautiful opportunity for potentially endless positive feedback loops of quantum realm connection and understanding, knowing too along the way you're not getting attached to someone else because you found they have life and you want it, you need it. Everyone does. The problem is we try to find it in other people and not in ourselves. And then you can find it in other people, and you can mutually enjoy each other because you have your own source of life. There's not a leeching that would happen, not even intentionally. These are like good people who have been hurt and traumatized, and we don't know any better. We're not taught to find it inside of yourself. We're taught in movies and everything to find it in the perfect romance and partner, and that's the only way it'll be complete. And, you know, or from one partner to the next until you find the right fit or whatever. But if you don't find that river of life inside of yourself first, you'll never find it. You just won't. You can't, because you're always going to be feeding off of them to an extent, or wanting to change them to make them your source. It doesn't work like that. I mean, two people should be in a relationship because they're whole in themselves. I'm not going to say totally whole, because then we don't need people, and I really do believe we need people. Interdependence versus codependence, though. So you're whole in yourself. Until you learn to be happy on your own. Like, dude, I'm so happy on my own a lot. Like, I cry a lot just at the beauty of things. I cry at the things I learn and other perspectives, and seeing how things work and make sense, and learning more about who I am and what I've been through, and just like, man, some of the outwardly toughest years of my life have been the happiest inwardly, because I've learned not just things, but I've learned about myself, and I've learned how to love in the process, and I've learned how to see the darkness inside of me and to acknowledge it, not to shun it or turn away from it, because it's not going anywhere. You gotta deal with it, you know. And spirit, your spirit, the spirit, is gracious and kind. You know, it's a saying in Christianity, Holy Spirit is gentleman. It's very true. Your spirit is a gentleman. It's a lady. You know, Big Aaron has never beat me over the head with the Bible or anything else. You know, I was going through a time back in first year of college when I was presented with the opportunity to deal with prosecuting the man who molested me when I was 13. And it came to the surface because of two other boys, a boy that was my age, and it just happened to his younger brother. And then he came forward and said it happened to him, and he was dealing with the guilt of it happening to him and not saying anything. Then it happened to his brother. And we went through a 1.5-year process prosecuting the man that molested us, and that was intense. But I remember when that first came up, and I'll say with this too, that it was the first time in Washington state history that a pedophile had pled guilty as charged on all accounts by the end of it. I mean, they tried different plea deals, and dude, his like hardcore douchebag lawyers, you know, like frat boy lawyers. It's just in every stereotypical way. You can just tell their demeanor, their questions. Anyway, they tried everything they could to delay it, to get him off, to get us to quit and give up. That's the most malicious thing about it, is that's the tactic. It's to get the kids, especially the younger one who was 13 at the time, and now it's in the news and all this stuff, to give up, to be knowing it's so hard for us, and just they'll quit eventually. They'll give in to this plea deal, and they tried 2 different times to offer us plea deals at the very end where they couldn't delay anymore. It was going to go to trial. And they still tried these plea deals. Like the last effort, we stood our ground. We just said, no, there's so much evidence. Why would we do that? And so we stood our ground, and he ended up pleading guilty as charged. Because, yeah, he would have been screwed if he went to court. It would have been way worse. He got 23 years to life. Minimum 23. And then they said for pedophiles, because they have a 100% repeat offender rate, they typically almost never get out, even when they're up for parole or whatever their thing is. Anyhow, when I found out about that, my mom had called, and she told me, she said, I have to ask you about something. There's, it was on the news that our old neighbor was arrested for being a pedophile. And I immediately just like froze inside because I hadn't thought about it. The irony is, so the night before at our youth group, I was one of the youth leaders, and it's a Pentecostal church, and so the beautiful thing about a lot of the more spirit-filled churches, as they would term it, tend to be some of the kookiest churches I've ever been to, but they're also some of the most love-filled, beautiful churches with beautiful people that just love. They really embody love. Anyway, I've always been a part of those streams for the most part, trying to, just checking out different conferences and churches and people, and anywhere the spirit is, anywhere there's life, there's, I think it's living, not just dead religion. And they, so the youth pastor had this prophetic word afterwards. He went up and just said, there's someone here, really feel like that there's someone here who's molested, and it's time to deal with that. So there's youth leaders up here. If you want to pray, you want somebody to pray with you. And it's like, it's easy to keep that confidential because people come up for prayer during after service all the time, this youth service, so you wouldn't know who's who. And I remember when he said that, in hindsight, I remember this, that like within a millionth of a second, all my memories from that event came flooding up and immediately just shoved back down. Like his triggering that, which I think it was, there was the spirit of the Lord, angel. I think there are angels, absolutely, but I cannot get into that paradigm right now. I can't. It's a fascinating, beautiful worlds and realms and astral realms and spirit realms, and it's all real. Another topic for another time. Anyway, there was something that helped my own spirit too to open up this memory, to bring it back, but my subconscious was like, oh shit, how'd this get out? Like it just shoved that shit back down right away. I didn't realize at the time that came up. My first conscious thought was, oh, okay, who am I going to pray for? Keep my eye out, like who's going to come up? Maybe I can pray for somebody. The next day I get this call from my mom, and because it had been stirred up the night before, it all came flooding back when she said that. Not every detail, but a big knot of it that my subconscious did not press down. It was too much at that moment. And I remember seeing this visual in my mind, like the Matrix 2, the hallway of doors, the white doors, the back door to the system, whatever. I saw that as inside of me. What I know now too, which is fascinating to interconnect this, is my actual cerebral my spinal column, and the doorways through the nervous system throughout the body to different places in the body that emotions and traumas are stored. I'm telling you, man, all these texts are literal, figurative, and metaphorical in ways that are all true and will all change your life for the better, looking at it all of the ways. So in this hallway of doors, which was me, my internal me, inside of my heart, my spinal cord, my being, that can be traversed and explored and stored memories. Every door had a memory, had a label on it, going to the water park, when I was a kid, or like just labels, memories. You can open the door, enter into that realm of memories. Well, down the hall, around the corner, was this like flickering light and this damp, musty smell, and at the end, this doorway covered in moss and mildew and chains and boards, but they had been broken off enough, and the door cracked open, and the door said, being molested. I was 13. And I remember seeing the door had been cracked open. That's what this memory did. It just cracked the door open. And I remember what I know now is my spirit. Now it's the facet of my spirit that's the Father. What I actually think more accurately is the soul that comes in with every heartbeat. And the spirit is unique to this incarnation. The soul is the culmination of all incarnations. So it has all of our past lives and future lives existing simultaneously in quantum reality, like really. It's the hub, the cloud, for all of that data. So like every Apple user connects to the cloud, so Apple itself can go through all of their data if it wanted to. that's like our soul has connection to go through all of our spirits and physical selves, incarnations that have ever been simultaneously. So it's got this far more mature, fatherly wisdom and voice, which I associate with the Father within Christianity, because those are the words that I had for this feeling, for this relationship I developed. So I look back now and I realize it's my soul saying to me, my highest self, higher self, highest self, soul. Excuse me. He's saying, you can open this door and let all the darkness out so that light can come in, and that you can find healing and wholeness for this in ways that you never have before. But you don't have to. We can close the door, but we will deal with it eventually. And it was so gentle, and it was so wonderful just to have that, like, knowing that he knew about it, my soul or whatever, wasn't worried about it, wasn't ashamed of me for having it, and it was okay that I don't have to talk about it. It creates a very safe place. People need a safe place to deal with trauma. It's critical. And the way I am, I want to deal with things. I've always been that way when things come up. Like, no, I want to deal with it. Let's get it out, man. Let's get healed. Let's get better. Let's do this. So I went to my youth pastor and I said, did anybody ever come up to you last night, because he lived on campus there, and say they were molested? He said, no. I said, well, it was me. And it started this process that I'll have to get into on another clip sometime, but beautiful process, incredible healing and stories, and I gave you the punchline there at the end, pleading guilty. That never happened in the state of Washington. So really incredible. So I think that lays a decent paradigm for, not for a placebo belief catalyst. I don't think I could have been more specific. Oh well. There's more things about me. It's my podcast video log, right? Whatever. It just makes it hard to kind of title these sometimes. Like, I can just picture me putting a title up in this that's like 50 words long, just trying to cover all the subject matter. So anyway, I guess I'll leave it to you. Part of me is like, well, just see what they respond to, see what people like and didn't like, what they want to know more about. That'll help me keep me on track. Things that stand out to you as interesting and whatever. So I guess let me end with this. Let me show you what I'm looking at, because it's beautiful. Let me flip this around. Let me flip around for some reason. That's all right. See, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's 42 stories up. And the sun is so amazing, and the earth, that it manages to create such a beautiful sunset, even when it has to pass all its rays through all that barium and strontium and aluminum and everything that shouldn't be in our atmosphere. It's still beautiful. It really is. So, thank you for listening. If you listen to the end, until next time, say what?